GPR Detroit HD2.
Is there any
You're watching WHPS, Highland Park, Detroit.
It's that time, y'all. Black coffee, no sugar, no cream. Yeah, it's straight talk with Valerie. Come on. Black coffee, no sugar, no cream. Yeah, it's straight talk with Valerie. Come on. It's straight talk with Valerie. It's straight talk with Valerie. Come on. Black coffee, no sugar, no cream. It's straight talk with Valerie. Come on. Black coffee, no sugar, no cream. It's straight talk with Valerie. Come on. Black coffee, no sugar, no cream. Black coffee, no sugar, no cream. It's straight talk with Valerie. Black coffee, no sugar, no cream. It's straight talk with Valerie. Come on. Black coffee, no sugar, no cream. It's straight talk with Valerie. Black coffee, no sugar, no cream. It's straight talk with Valerie. Come on.
Hello, everyone. I'm back. Did you miss me? I certainly missed being here. You are listening to the Real Black Coffee, No Sugar, No Cream, 107.5 HD2. And if you're live on Facebook, you will be able to see me on there as well. This is a new segment, and I'm calling this segment the Black Pulse. And the reason why is because we definitely need to keep checking the pulse on the Black community. I think we flatlined in some areas. Did we die? You know, what happened? What's going on? Can we be defibrillated? Or are certain things that go on within the Black community just gone forever? Let's talk about it. This election has a lot of people in uproar, and they're saying we going back to slavery, and a lot of people are afraid and scared. So let's go back to slavery, and let's talk a little bit about what that was like. Some of our behavior can be linked to a syndrome called post-traumatic slavery disorder, which came from the 1700s and began with a man named Willie Lynch. So let's give you a quick overview of who Willie Lynch is and what he was about.
I have a foolproof method for controlling your black slaves. I guarantee every one of you that if installed correctly, it will control the slaves for at least 300 years. Distrust is stronger than trust, and envy is stronger than adulation, respect, or admiration. The black slaves, after receiving this indoctrination, shall carry on and will become self-refueling and self-regenerating for hundreds of years, maybe thousands. Don't forget, you must pitch the old black male versus the young black male, and the young black male against the old black male. You must use the dark-skinned slaves versus the light-skinned slaves, and the light-skinned slaves versus the dark-skinned slaves. You must use the female versus the male, and the male versus the female. You must also have white servants and overseers who distrust all blacks. But it is necessary that your slaves trust and depend on us. They must love, respect, and trust only us. Gentlemen, these kids are your keys to control. Have your wives and children use them. Never miss an opportunity. If used intentionally for 1 year, the slaves themselves will be perpetually mistrustful. Thank you, gentlemen.
So, you heard a little bit about the Willie Lynch letter, where you pit the slaves against each other. Buck breaking happened through that time and a lot more. But I'm not going to explore this topic by myself. I am going to bring on my guest for this evening so we can have a conversation with you about the plantation has changed, but the mentality remains the same. So I have with me my warrior sister, my right hand, Trisha Duckworth. Say hello to everyone, Trisha.
What's up, Detroit? Hey, Valerie, thank you for having me on with you today.
It is my pleasure. I can't do it without ya.
Oh,
You like my heartbeat.
yeah.
And we have our student colleague extraordinaire, Jarrell. Say hello to everyone, Jarrell.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, just like mimicking what Trisha said, thank you for having me. I'm excited to dive into the conversation.
So let's get right into it. Slavery, buck breaking, systemic racism, bidding each other against each other, fighting. Let's explore that and its impact on us as Black Americans. Trisha and I was having a conversation earlier and we talked about it. There's a huge problem in the Black community. And a lot of it stems from slavery. Jarrell, you're younger than I am. And so when you take a look back at slavery and what happened during that time and kind of where we are now, what does that gap look like to you?
What the gap looks like to me, I mean, that's a good question. I mean, a lot has changed, since then. We came a long way, and I would like to acknowledge that, because, I mean, we are doing things that our ancestors would dream about doing. One of the biggest things is we are able to rest. So we given that chance to do that, and we're in spaces that they were never allowed to be in. So I do want to acknowledge that piece. But I think there's a gap in, I think, unity and togetherness. So I think, I think there was a sense way back when, that, Black people were, like, had this unity and that they were together and worked together to, for causes, for the bigger cause, and understanding, like, hey, we need to fight for our freedom, fight for our rights, fight to be seen, fight for, to be heard. And I think somewhere in between, 1864 and now, I mean, even probably before, obviously before 1864 too, but between 1864 and now, there has been a loss in that unity. It feels like we are, on different pages sometimes, and then we all have our own motives, and it kind of feels like, in a sense, like we're a little bit selfish, but also a little bit scared. We do want to fight. We do want to come together, but I don't think that we know how to do that. I don't think that, I think that we are losing that sense of what it means to be a community, to fight for the cause, the bigger cause. I think we make a lot of noise, which is a good thing, because they can't silence us, so they hear us making the noise, but the action that follows the noise, I think sometimes we lack. In order to make that action, I think that we do need that unity, we do need that togetherness, in that community to move forward. So I think that's some gaps, well, a gap that I noticed between then and now.
Thank you for that. And Trisha has coined this phrase that the civil rights movement rocked us to sleep. So, Trisha, can you tap in and talk about what that looks like? Excuse me, we had a lot of accomplishments that Jarrell highlighted. Like, there are a lot of accomplishments, and no one's trying to diminish what has been done before and how that helped us today. But then there's some things that are missing. And Trisha said, yes, we had a lot of momentum and a lot of power. And then when we got to the civil rights movement, after we were successful with some aspects of that, we were just rocked to sleep by that. So Trisha, can you tap in and talk about that?
Yeah, I think it even goes back to what you started with about the divide in our community, because even before we got the Civil Rights Act, there was division. Some folks liked Dr. King. Some folks didn't like Dr. King, they liked Malcolm X. Some folks wanted to follow Marcus Garvey. Some folks, so it's always so many different theories of how we can move forward, and it seems like everybody thinks their way is the way, right? And so if you think that your way is the way, then you're only going to work on your way and you're going to downcast another way, when really it's going to take all these ways to be able to accomplish the freedom that we need as a people. But when you look at it like with the Civil Rights Act, we had pastors and deacons and strong church mothers that were leading that, and they did it by any means necessary. They did the protests and made noise, but then they also followed up with meetings. They did boycotts. I mean, Bloody Sunday. There was so much that was done. And then the signing of the Civil Rights Act, which to me, I feel like now was more symbolic for the oppressor to do for us, as a means to say, okay, now here you got this and be quiet. Because that still wasn't enough. I think when that happened, though, for us, it was a sigh of relief. Because now you can't lynch me, right? Now you can't do certain things to me because we have these certain civil rights. And so I feel like after that, into the 70s, it was more, we're in safe mode now. Now we can have some things that our Caucasian siblings have, or we can get mortgages, we can have houses, we can do all of this stuff. And it's almost like this, like we had a sense of false freedom, because in this signing of this act, now here we sit in 2025, and what good are those civil rights really doing for us as it pertains to our entire community? They may serve well for the individual, but how do they serve for the collective? And I think that's the problem right there, is that I think Jarrell said it. We are and Dr. Omer talked about this on Friday night. We are so selfish. All we care about is ourselves. But what sacrifices are we willing to make for the collective? Because if we look back before the Civil Rights Act, those were sacrifices that were made for the collective. And we're not doing that now. We're sacrificing each other so that we can build individual power. And then that person that's in that individual power will turn around and give us some scraps, but it's not nearly enough to set our people free. That is a collective effort that comes along with sacrifice from the individual for the collective, and we don't see that right now.
No, we do.
And
Go ahead, Jarrell.
I was just, I'm sorry. I was gonna say, Trisha, you said something that I was thinking in my head as well, that we don't have those community leaders anymore. Like if you have a bunch of people, you need people to go to one person that is a collective, to meet together, to be the voice, and to pull the action together. And we're losing that. And I know that in the conversation we're going to talk about the church and stuff, but I think the church was a part of that, that people can go to, and they had those leaders to do that. I think the people now that we look to as leaders may be celebrities. And I think a lot of my generation and generation after me, which is millennials and Gen Z, I think we put a lot of We put a lot of power into celebrities and thinking that celebrities are going to move us forward, and that's not necessarily the thing. Because just like us, they have their place in a movement as well, and their strong suit may not be, leading a movement and whatnot. Their strong suit may be something, and they may just be the voice, or they may have power or whatever, but they may not be the ones that necessarily like lead a group to what we need them to do. So yeah, we do need to come together. We need to recognize our strengths and where we are, and then once again sacrifice, be willing to sacrifice to make that impact and have that impact.
Yeah, one thing, Valerie, real quick. You just said something. And I think, Valerie, I don't know if you remember this. Survivor Speak, we did that panel. We did two of them. Are you an activist? And the reason why we did them is because we wanted to show people that, okay, you might not be the one on the front line with the bullhorn. You might be crunching the numbers. We need statistics and demographic information to get grants. We need researchers to research certain things. So it's just what you said, everybody understanding their gifts and their talents, and then you bring that to the movement. But see, we still have to come together as a collective because we have to know what each other does. If we want to have each other as allies, we have to know, okay, I'm gonna call Jarrell because I know Jarrell can do X, Y, and Z. I'm gonna call Valerie because I know she can do this, and I'm gonna call Trisha because I know she can do that. And then we can meet back together and we can talk about how we're gonna put it all together. That's not happening. We're not talking enough. We're not having enough conversations, and we're not learning how to leverage the differences. We look at differences as something that's bad, when really we should be excited about the differences, because then that gives us another arm or another leg to stand on to fight this fight.
That fear is just intrinsically running through our veins anyway. When we look back at slavery and how they broke our men down in front of the women, raped them, beat them, and so on, lynched them, so on and so forth, some of that stuff is still in the veins and the DNA of people today. And when you did the panel of Are You an Activist? Because I never really considered myself an activist until you did that panel. And I'm like, okay, I strategize behind the scenes. I'm good at what I'm good at. I speak up about what I speak up about, but I never considered myself an activist. But each one of us have something we can do to contribute through the movement. You're hungry after you're out there protesting and marching and speaking. Someone can make cookies, someone can bring water. Everybody doesn't want to be on the front line. And then Trisha and I have this running joke like, I'm not going to jail. And we laugh about it, but I tell her, that's where the buck stops for me. I mean, there are instances, I'm one traffic stop away from a wrongful conviction. I'm not talking about like that, but I'm talking about in this strategy meeting, if we say, okay, this person is going to be on the front line, let's use a sit-in, for instance. Okay, some of you go in and sit at the counter that's for whites only, and the police are going to come because you're not supposed to sit there. Then I wouldn't be one of the ones to take that seat. Like, okay, well, I'll be on the bail committee, strategize. I can let you know when they come in. But I'm not sitting on the stool. And it's okay for me. People can call it cowardice. They can call it whatever. I call it knowing what I'm willing to sacrifice.
Boundaries.
I know my boundaries, and I know what I'm willing to do for the movement. And I think everyone needs to analyze what they're willing to do, because we're going to get to the next segment in a few minutes. But you better be willing to do it. You better be 10 toes down for it. And you better be doing it for the right reason, because people will turn on you.
Oh my God.
So you cannot be in this work, be in the community, standing for a cause, and you end up by yourself, locked up. And the only role of that person that was standing by you is to say they was there and run down what happened. That's a hurtful and very painful situation. So when you're doing this work, You have to do it from your heart and your soul. You have to understand what you're willing to sacrifice. And most of us get moved into action when it becomes personal. I've had some incidents where people were so against harm reduction and so against, saving lives and passing out syringes until one of their loved ones fell out and died and could have been saved from Narcan. Now all of a sudden, they'll reach out, hey, can you help us? Can you do this? Can you do that? And it's the same with this movement. Don't wait until it's your son, your daughter, or you to decide what your role is or to seek help. And also, we have to support each other, because if you're not willing to go out there and stand, and that's how I got into the protesting part. I've always used my voice and amplified it in situations to fight for myself and my loved ones. So I was just born to do that. But to be out on the front line and marching and standing, it was just reciprocal, because Trisha stood by me in a lot of situations. So I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to let her stand by herself. And other people are like, hey, you want to protest? I don't protest. When you see me out there with her, it's reciprocity. I've been to a couple of other protests with a few other friends for the probate devils in the courtroom thing. I've been to a couple of theirs too. And that's the thing, not knowing when it's going to be your time. I never thought that I would be in a guardianship probate type situation. I was just going to use my voice. They were like, hey, can you MC? Can you come stand with us? I went to the state capitol with them and all of that. Never to know that 3 years later, now I got to stand for my mother.
Yeah. And
they all were there. They probably would have come if I didn't do that. But it was just so proud to say, hey, I was there for them and they reciprocated that.
Yeah.
So sometimes you just have to do what you can when you can before it becomes personal. Because you could end up standing alone if you have never done anything towards the movement or a cause for anyone else. You can't even expect other people to be there for you. That's the selfish part. So it's not just selfish having the means and the ways to do stuff for people. It's selfish if you don't do nothing. But then when you're in trouble or your loved one is wrongfully convicted or arrested or beat up or raped in a nursing home, then here you come expecting people to help you. It don't work like that.
Yeah.
Reciprocity is what we need to be practicing. Do unto others as you want them to do unto you. Know your rights, know your place. All of that comes into play.
Yeah.
So we're going to move into now what that looks like. So we talked about Willie Lynch and that whole buck breaking thing. But now let's talk about the different types of Negroes that we have. And we're going to play this short video to show us the different types. Let's hear from Malcolm X. Marquise.
Back during slavery, when black people like me talked to the slaves, they didn't kill them. They'd send some old house Negro along behind him to undo what he said. You have to read the history of slavery to understand this. There were two kinds of Negroes. There was that old house Negro and the field Negro. And the house Negro always looked out for his master. When the field Negroes got too much out of line, he held them back in check. He put them back on the plantation. The house Negro could afford to do that because he lived better than the field Negro. He ate better, he dressed better, and he lived in a better house. He lived right up next to his master in the attic or the basement. He ate the same food his master ate and wore his same clothes. And he could talk just like his master. Good diction. And he loved his master more than his master loved himself. That's why he didn't want his master hurt. If the master got sick, he'd say, "What's the matter, boss? We sick?" When the master's house caught a fire, he'd try and put the fire out. He didn't want his master's house burned. He never wanted his master's property threatened. And he was more defensive of it than the master was. That was the house Negro. But then you had some field Negroes who lived in huts, had nothing to lose. They wore the worst kind of clothes. They ate the worst food. and they caught hell. They felt the sting of the lash. They hated their master. Oh, yes, they did. If the master got sick, they prayed that the master died. If the master's house caught a fire, they prayed for a strong wind to come along. This was the difference between the two. And today you still have house Negroes and field Negroes.
And that's a fact. Today, we still have that mentality. That's why I say the plantation has changed, but the mentality remains the same. And if we look at every movement that we've had, Marcus Garvey had someone that was an insider that became an outsider. Martin Luther King had someone that was an insider that became an outsider. Malcolm X had someone that was an insider, became an outsider. The only one I don't think really had that happen was Harriet Tubman, because she had a pistol. And you was an insider. And once you was inside, you couldn't switch up on her and become no house or sharecropping Negro, because she would kill you. She was left with no choice. That's why she made all of the missions that she made and had a real high bounty on her head, but never got caught. Because if you wasn't serious and being down with her, you got shot. You didn't live to tell it. So let's talk about that mentality, because that mentality is what's causing this gap that we're talking about.
Yeah.
That separation, that post-traumatic slavery disorder, the field Negro versus the house Negro mentality. And for me, if I had to break it down further or make it more modern day, I would say that, you know, some of the people who have made it into some of the political seats, so some of our black politicians are also house Negroes. They get in those seats, they take position, and as Trichet always says, they become a part of the machine. They're eating, and they're eating good. They're living, and they're living good. But a lot of times that doesn't translate back to the black community and what we need and what we need to receive for whatever the reason. So Trichet, if you could chime in on that subject.
I think it's so. This was kind of something that I'm really looked at and wanting to weigh whether I was going to go back to school for post-traumatic slavery disorder or not for my doctorate, right? Because I saw how real and see how real it is still to this day. And you said something about like the outsiders and the insiders. Well, it's interesting. Some people were inside and then they flipped. But some people were intentionally planted inside of these organizations to bring it down. I look at the Black Messiah. We seen that movie. It was about Fred Hampton. It was about what happened. That man was strategically placed. Well, what are we looking at when we see somebody like that? That's someone who is a selfish individual that realizes if they do whatever the oppressor wants, they can keep the oppressor's foot off their neck. So they think. See, that's the thing when you sacrifice the movement for personal gain. Because the oppressor is always going to remind you that you ain't nothing but okay? That moment for you will come sooner or it will come later when you get your reminder that you still black. And so I think for me what happens is, and it's really, really sad right here, right now where we sit, because you're right, a lot of our politicians, as a matter of fact, there was a movie and they said it was a satire type movie. No, it might have been a satire movie, but the The actions of the movie are very real. And I don't know if a lot of people seen it. I'm sure they did. I mean, if you haven't, I'm gonna suggest that you go see it. But the American Society of Magical Negroes. That's what it boils down to now. Folks that think that if you make our Caucasian siblings comfortable, that it will make life easier for you. But I'm telling you right now, y'all, that's not the case. Clearly, we can see because we have been using that magical Negro approach for a very long time. But as a collective, has it got more comfortable for us? As a collective, have we gotten any further ahead? It's ghettos all across the United States of America. Poverty looks the same. That poverty rate looks the same. The amount of us under the poverty rate looks the same. That's intentional. Those are intentional acts that unfortunately some of our own people put our necks on the chopping block to be in this position that we're in now. We ain't got to stay there though. But how do we get to a different place when we're so divided? I'm telling you, and I'm so passionate about this because you will never understand the amount of hurt and backstabbings and things that have come in this movement against me as an individual or our organizations. And it's by our own people. It's the most hurt feeling because I'm saying, dummy, we fighting for you too.
You know, that's the part that really, really, really angers me because I'm all right. I am all right. And I see Beulah and Jay watching. Hey, y'all. I haven't met Beulah in person, but I do follow her and a lot of work she's done with Hydrate Detroit and the water movement, and Jay, Justice for Gerard, her son. But here's the deal. And I think it's for a lot of us that fight in our own ways. I'm all right. I have food at home. I have a roof over my head. I have a car that I can drive. I'm grateful, I'm thankful, and I'm blessed. I'm not boasting. It's to prove my point that I'm out here for fighting for people. And I'm all right though. But I'm not selfish. So that's why I do it. That's why we have the harm reduction program, and that's why we put ourselves out there for the people who perform sex work and for the people who use drugs and try to help them when they go to court and things of that nature. I'm all right though. So I think a lot of people get comfortable. Like Trisha said, the civil rights movement rocked some of us to sleep, including the church, and we're going to get on that next segment. But at the same time, it is hurtful when you're out here doing all of this work, sacrificing time away from your family, sacrificing resources, digging in our own pockets. We didn't always have funding and stuff to do this work, digging in your own pocket to do stuff, losing sleep. Again, taking time away from your family and all of that to be backstabbed later, to be talked about. And the sad part about it, it be black men.
Oh my gosh. I wanted to ask Dr. Umar that so bad. Like, what do we do about it? The most oppression that I've got from our people have been black men. And you know, I ain't gonna call his name, but I feel like he's one of the ones that's bullied me the most behind the scenes and in my face, right? And one day we had a conversation and he said, you know, I had to ask myself, what's my problem with Duckworth? He said, and I came to the conclusion that my problem is that you out here doing what we should be doing. And I'm like, so, but you gonna penalize me? Because you ain't doing what you're supposed to be doing? But here's the thing, and Dr. Umar did talk about this when it comes to our men. He said some of our men got a lot of estrogen female energy. And what happens is that it's the ego. Because you think, I'm a man, I should be doing this. It doesn't matter. Do you think I want to lead all the time? No. But I'm not gonna drop the torch just because somebody else ain't there to pick it up. I gotta keep moving with it.
Jealousy.
Exactly.
Jealousy and hostility equal shade.
That's it.
Jealousy and hostility equal shade. Why not come alongside and say, and this notion, well, you ain't from Ipsy, you ain't from Detroit, you ain't from the West Side, you ain't from Inkster, so why are you here? Look, they all the damn same. They got crime, they got problems, they have poverty, they have ghettos. They all have the same. Stop with the divisiveness. If somebody's willing to join forces with you or whatever, then allow that. If you had all of the answers, the problem wouldn't still exist.
Exactly.
So none of us have all the answers, but that's that divisiveness that slavery created.
Exactly.
Right? So we don't band together like we're supposed to, feeling one's going to be better than the other one. Look, all our skin is black. We ain't no better than the other. And next week, we're going to talk about how desegregation hurt us. That'll be the second part of the Black Pulse. We don't know how to be together. Some of us make it. We don't look back to try to help nobody else. And that's the issue. So let me let Jarrell tap in because he's younger. And so, Jarrell, do you see that within your age group too, that divisiveness or, some of the things that we've talked about?
I mean, kind of going back to the Willie Lynch letter and how the men are getting pinned against the women and women getting pinned against the men. To Trishay's point about, and your point as well, Valerie, about ego. I mean, it is ego, and it's a bruised ego at that. Like seeing that black men are supposed to be the head of the black community, supposedly, but in seeing that women are now, not needing or leading in places that men are supposed to lead. I mean, it can be hurtful. It can bruise your ego, and then instead of actually saying that or doing something about it, they can get angry instead. And once again, anger is a secondary emotion. So it's kind of like you need to tap into what the first emotion is for you to understand like why you're actually physically angry. Understanding that. So it's instead of like, once again, repeating what y'all said, instead of just getting angry, why don't you just work together and do the work? I mean, in the civil rights movement, a lot of men were leading, but there were also a lot of women actually that were helping as well. We can do this once again together. But I don't know. I don't know if men are willing to do that. I think they want all control of it, and it's kind of like, well, if you want all control, I mean, you can step in and kind of do something. Like, you can't just get angry about it, or when you see women doing things that you believe that you should be doing. Because I see a lot of women talking about how they're the ones who are out protesting and where are the men and whatnot, and then women are fighting to make sure that we aren't going to jail, or when we get gunned down in the middle of the streets, that they're the ones fighting for those rights. Black women and then gay men. It's kind of like, where are the other men that are here to help and stuff? So I wanted to. So I thought about that as y'all were speaking. I had another point too that I should have wrote down that I lost, but but I do see it a lot in my generation, and just a lot of discourse and disconnect and about foolishness that doesn't really matter, that we need to come together to do and be organized. But I don't know what it would take. I don't know who it would take. I don't know who would allow them to listen, who they would listen to. I said that wrong, but who they would listen to encourage them to do that. I know that Dr. Umar be out here preaching about it and trying to get people motivated to do it, but the lack of people doing it in the call to action and the actual physical doing it, no black men are really stepping to the plate to actually do it. So
here's my take though. I feel that the goal could be the same, right? We can use freedom. We all want to be free, or whatever the goal is. But your morals and values have to be in alignment. if you don't have this, because for me, my morals and values is what drive my action. If I don't care about it, or I'm not tied to it morally, or I don't value it or anything like that, then it would be difficult for me to move into action into that regard. And so your morals and values have to be in alignment. The goal could be the same, but if those things are out of alignment, you're going to have problems. And that's what the issue is, and wanting to have control, and people not really setting boundaries for themselves, and I can go on and on and on and on. But being territorial, I just chuckled like, oh, well, you're not from here, so why you want to be here? It's still poverty. It's still a problem. So why does that even matter?
You know what, Valerie? Let me say this too. Part of the issue, which you just talked about, Jarrell, is that some of us are just not even clear of the bad shape that we're even in. That's what I mean when I say the civil rights rocked us to sleep. Do you know we out here fighting for racism and we protesting, but we got black folks in the window pointing at us like, oh, that's not racism. That's not, what you mean that's not? Because black folks don't understand a lot of them systems. They don't understand systemic racism. And guess what? I didn't either. I thought racism was the man riding around with the flags out the back of his truck. And I used to tell people, like, all you have to do is just work hard. I mean, I was a magical ass Negro, okay? And I used to tell people, like, I mean, as long as you work hard and you pick, and this and that and this and that. And then when them jokers at that university, who I'm not going to say right now, for sake of not wanting to put a downcast on your show, when that stuff happened at that school, because guess what? That was beyond my control. I was a 3.9 summa cum laude graduate. I shouldn't have had no problems like that. But they came to remind my magical self that I was still black.
Baby.
I reached out to everybody. I reached out to the Michigan Department of Civil Rights, the Department of Education. I mean, I was just fighting it. That begun my fight against this wicked system.
Oh, yeah.
And now I know that God allowed me to go through that to open my eyes to the fact that this thing is much bigger than what I realized. It ain't about the man riding around the neighborhood with the racist flag out his truck. I mean, it's about that too, but it's so much bigger than that. But we're not paying attention because it's so not affecting our lives. And just like you said earlier, if trouble is not tapping on our doorstep, we're not checking for it. Until it does, then you want to call a protest and you're trying to call survivor speak, and we will come.
And protests work then. What about the ones who say protests don't work?
That part. Oh, no, those practicals are funny. Oh, Jarrell, go ahead. What were you saying?
I was gonna say it did, but it all still goes back to what the plan always was to do that, to the lack of education, to make sure that we don't know, and to continue to not know, and to continue to think that it's not racism, to think that this system is not rigged. This country was built on racism. That's all this country knows. All this country knows is how to be racist, how to keep people into slavery, how to oppress people. That's the word, not slavery, but how to oppress people. That's what it's built on.
No, they keeping us into
sent
slavery.
criminals. I mean, yes, yeah, they are different type of slavery, but yes, I mean, this country they sent criminals here. Because they didn't want them over there in Europe. So they sent them to this country to, colonize it and whatnot. And they were already criminals when they came. So then they created this system, and then it's deeply rooted in here, and they cannot get rid of it. So when there are, people that say, black people that say like, oh, is a racist, like everything is racist. Everything in this country is racist, because it wasn't made for us. When they had that piece of paper and wrote the Articles of Confederation and the Declaration of Independence and why am I blanking? The Bill of Rights and all that good stuff. When they wrote all that stuff, we were not included in that. We were
That's
not
right.
included in any of that stuff, that thought process, because they never thought that there would be a day in the year 2025 that we would be walking around and we would be quote unquote free. And they all this stuff happens. So when I do hear people in our community say stuff like you don't need to go to school or anything like that, I mean, I get what you're saying, but also at the same time, school is a place where you can get this knowledge and education so you don't fall into the stigma and you don't fall into that. So you can be aware. That doesn't mean that you just stop your education once you graduate. You continue to learn, you continue to grow so you know, so you don't keep falling into the same perpetual trap over and over again. Or if you don't choose not to go to school, which is also an option, but you still need to educate yourself and learn about the systems and learn about what's going on in the world. So once again, you're not repeating the same trends and over and over
Yeah,
and over again.
cycles. Well, the systems are not broke. The criminal justice system, it is not
Mm-hmm.
broken. The political system, it is not broken. The healthcare system, it is not broken. The scientific system, none of these systems are broken. So when I hear people say the system is broken, I chuckle a little bit. It's doing what it was designed to do because it was never designed for us, including education. It's not broken. It was never designed for us. Period.
Which is why they had to do things like affirmative action to make sure that, everyone can get in equally, and have a fair chance, into getting the education. But like you mentioned, I mean,
It
it's not
wasn't
broken. I
designed
mean,
for us. And so I think, the heavily reliance upon those things is kind of another thing that kind of rocked us to sleep because they're like, oh, they're going to take away this and they're going to take away that. And they probably are. But where we think eating pig feet came from? I stopped eating them. But baby, I throw some hot sauce on some trotters and smash them if I need to survive. I'm not above any of the things. And I was talking to my mother about this, and she was like, you don't have no fear about 47? And I said, no. She said, good, you shouldn't, because if I made it through what I made it through, you can make it through this. Because it's a lot more resources and a lot more things available to you. And plus, you're standing on the foundation of me, who birthed you in Birmingham, Alabama, in the civil rights movement, and your grandmother and your great grandfather, who was a sharecropper. We ain't running from this. It ain't nothing to be scared of. You just got to strategize and learn how to survive. And the problem is, if what we're going through right now, with 47 doesn't bring the black community together, nothing will. So we're just going to have to find those who are like-minded with the same morals and values and come together. I've been strategizing and talking to my aunt and other family members, like, what are we going to do? If grocery get too high, the people who really can't afford to buy that, how are we going to feed them? Do we have LGBTQ brothers and sisters and siblings and cousins and stuff like that? How are we going to help them with their mental health? Let's wrap our arms around those who need it. Now, I do have a caveat, because if you screwed over me before, I don't give a damn. So I'm going to say that on national radio. If you done screwed over me before, I don't give a damn what you're missing. I'm not helping you because I don't trust you, and I can't rebuild trust. Just had to say that in case some of my family members is watching now. Back to regularly scheduled programming. But those are the things. How are we going to come together as a community? And next week we will talk about that. We were better off when we were segregated because people didn't have the opportunity to think that they were better than anyone else and think they were more of a house Negro than they actually were, and all of that. We had everything within the confines of our community. We didn't mind sharing. We didn't mind cooking for each other and all of that. And when segregation happened, I think it did more harm than good, and we will talk about that. So we're going to take a quick musical break, and we will be right back. You're listening to 107.5 HD2 Detroit, the real black coffee, no sugar, no cream.
I'm just trying to do the best that I can.
No, I'm good.
As a strong black man.
Yeah, I'm great.
Yeah, great. Yeah.
Here I stand as a strong black man, having done all I can to please my fellow man. I don't understand why that knife is in your hand. After doing all I can as a strong black man, I'm gonna take my stand as a black man. I will do the best.
So we just took that quick musical break. We're back. And again, you listen to 107.5 HD2 Detroit. This is the real black coffee, no sugar, no cream. So we've talked about what this show is called, the Black Pulse. And I named it that for a reason, because I think we need defibrillation. We're dying. And so let's test the pulse of the black community and to see what's going on. And we called this show The Plantation Remains. The plantation looks different, but the mentality remains. We've talked about Willie Lynch and how we got here. And then we went into, after that, the field Negro versus the house Negro. Now let's talk about the church and the role of the church and the Bible. And I've had a lot of conversations. Caveat, my biological father is a pastor. Second caveat, please don't get in my inbox, because, you know, this is my show and I get to say what I want to say. And I'm not saying what I'm saying is right, but I want to say it. So don't come from me, holy saints, you know, or whatever, because I cuss and all of that, and I don't want to be disrespectful to anybody, so don't be disrespectful to me. But this is what I have to say. The Bible was the only book that the slaves were allowed to have. They weren't even supposed to know how to read, but they could have that book. So why would you think that the slave masters would give you a book that was based on this deity, God, religion, or whatever? And I believe in a power higher than myself, so I'm not saying that either. But I am saying, why would they give you that book if they thought it was going to empower you? They didn't give it to you for that purpose. They gave it to you to keep you in further bondage. And I'm going to roll a clip right now so that you can hear a little bit about what books were missing and why the Bible was given to the slaves.
Inside Washington's Museum of the Bible, a single volume that is like no other. The so-called Slave Bible. Remarkable not for what's in it, but for what's not.
So about 90% of the Old Testament's been removed, and about 50% of the New Testament's been removed. To put it another way, a normal King James Version has 1,189 chapters in it. The Slave Bible has only 232.
Missing are chapters and verses that might have encouraged uprisings. Book of Exodus, redacted. No story of Moses demanding Pharaoh, "Let my people go." Gone is Galatians, and the verse, "There is neither bond nor free, for ye are all one in Christ Jesus." And no Jeremiah, "Woe unto him that useth his neighbor's service without wages."
What they've left in are verses such as Ephesians 6:5, which is the famous verse, "Slaves, be obedient to your master."
Looking at this Bible, it's hard to tell that anything's been taken out of it.
That's correct. I mean, it looks like a normal book. For many enslaved Africans, this would have been the first time they were exposed to the Bible.
A Bible selectively edited to instill obedience, using religion to underpin the horror of slavery.
When people encounter this exhibit, what lasting impression do you want them to leave with?
Well, we want to pass the message on that may this never happen again. The Bible itself is a whole book. It's not one that you get to carve up and use this piece or that piece.
The slave Bible designed to repress rebellion, but it didn't work. Enslaved people in the Caribbean constantly fought against slavery until emancipation.
I think it's very relevant to understand our history, not just American history, but our African American history, our roots and how.
So, let's get into it. I believe that having this book did some good things during that time for those who needed that ray of hope. To be able to gather together in front of Master and congregate and stuff like that and have a sense of camaraderie without worrying. They allowed them to have that. And of course they had the house Negro on the porch, and also he was the one leading the service, so he better not say anything out of order. He had to say whatever would be pleasing to Master at that time, who was sitting there in his rocking chair with the dog and a fan, I guess. But at the same time, it was very hurtful. Here's the scripture right here. 1 Peter, slaves, in reverent fear of God, submit yourself to your masters, not only to those who are good and considerate, but also to those who are harsh. For it is commendable if someone bears up under the pain of unjust suffering because they are conscious of God. But how is it to your credit if you receive a beating for doing wrong and endure it? But if you suffer for doing good and you endure it, this is commendable before God. What? Yeah, okay. Okay. And people say, oh, you're misinterpreting it. That means your boss and your job. I don't give a damn what that means. You ain't about to beat me. And then I'm just one of those rebellious kind. I got a little Nat Turner in me. I got a little Harriet Tubman in me. And if we get biblical, I got a little Peter in me. I just read this and I just want to cry. Like, how in the world do you think this is okay? Slaves, obey your earthly masters with respect and fear and with a sincerity of heart, just as you would obey Christ. What? So let me take a break because, like Jarrell said, anger is the second emotion. So let me just reel myself back in. But come on now.
See, here's the thing, right? And the Willie Lynch letter touched on this. If you can get somebody in their mind first, everything that comes after that is going to be to your favor. And that's exactly what this is. This is, first of all, let's just be honest. They took our God from us. They had us worshiping this blonde hair and blue-eyed Jesus, Caucasian. And it's really sad that some religions to this day, because of these misguided scriptures, will say that slavery was our fault and we were cursed, and so that's why we were in slavery, and all of these things that were said. It makes me sad. After I think about being mad about it, it makes me sad because there's a whole generation of us not knowing who we are and not knowing the full power that we truly possess. And it is because we were given a Bible to water us down, because they knew the power that we possessed as a people. They knew it. And so if they could get us to believe, and because of our strong roots and our belief in the Creator, They knew exactly how to break us down. If we believed that the Creator thought that slavery was our plight, then we would accept it. And a lot of us did, and I believe still to this day, which is why you hear people making excuses for slavery. I'm talking about black folks making excuses for slavery based on these scriptures. And it is basically just really stifled our movement, in my opinion, as a people, to really understand the gods that we are supposed to be in this earth.
Yeah. Like I said, I believe in a power higher than myself. My biological father is a pastor. So this is in no regard to, anyone's belief system. I'm just talking about how certain parables and stories and stuff in the Bible become so realistic and factual for people, and they really follow it. And it's like, no, you're not going to tell me someone just beat me and I'm going to just give them the love of Christ. Get out of here. No. We're not doing that. But at the same time, some good came out of the collaboration of us coming together to worship, because that was the foundation of the civil rights movement, right? Like, I believe they met in each other's homes, but they also met in churches and did a lot of things within the church that helped the movement as it progressed. Of course, every time we would build somewhere, then they would bomb it, or burn it or whatever. But I believe that a lot of things came together as a result of religion. I won't say as the Bible, as the result of congregating and having the same morals, values, and belief system when it comes to that, and having the strength to do it, and community solidarity, because at least you can come on one accord, at least believing in God, and that could be a foundation for it. But still, there were so many variations of that. I just believe that we could have accomplished the same thing without it, because that was another way to institute fear. You're going to fear master and you're going to fear God. Like, both of these things going to have repercussions. So you're going to fear God and you're going to fear master. So now you're just bound by fear on both sides. I just feel that there are some aspects of that failed us then, and it's some aspects of that that's failing us now. We have so many churches in our communities. Like, it's one small community. I can use my hometown city of Inkster. It could be 10 churches there. It could be more. I don't know. I'm saying 10. I should just take an actual count. It's a lot of them.
A lot. South side of Ipsy, it's like 20, anywhere from 25 to 27 churches in that small radius. And so when I take office, the first thing I'm going to do is, if you ain't, I'm going to put a bill in place. Only a certain amount of churches in a certain square area. You ain't doing nothing. They're not feeding the community. They're not feeding the hungry. They're not housing nobody. They won't open their churches to allow people to come in when it's cold outside. We don't need all them churches. We do not need all of them churches in them square, in that small space. Especially, you're right, in your neighborhood, I would say way more than 10
Yeah, it's
churches.
more than 10, but I got to count them up. But here's the thing, too. If you have food, like, why should any family be hungry? If you got 20 churches, if every church took a day and passed out food to help someone, that could cover a whole month. But we don't do that. We don't do that. But I know if the government said, hey, well, we are no longer giving tax breaks to people who are not doing nonprofit work. So if you're a church and you're not feeding the community and you're not doing nonprofit work, you are no longer considered a nonprofit entity and you will pay taxes. I wonder what that would look like.
That's my second bill that I'm going to introduce when I get into office, is that they will pay taxes if 65% of their money is not going towards the community. They can keep 35% of it for the upkeep of the church or for any salaries or anything like that, but everything else must be going out. We are not about to keep funding your airplanes and your Lexuses and all your houses and all that. Okay, the church can give you a stipend where you can pay for your own house note and your own car note, but you're not getting rich off the backs of the community no more. Then the first two things I'm gonna do when I take office. Now I don't know when this is gonna be, and
Sister
if I don't
Sister Duckworth,
I'm still gonna write the bill up.
Sister Duckworth is supposed to be 90-10. Now
Yeah,
you
okay.
know it's supposed to be 90-10.
Yeah, okay.
You give up the 10, and then you do what you need to do with the 90. God bless your soul.
Well, I need to know where the 10 is going. I need to know, because I know that the IRS, okay, gave the tax break because they thought that they was going to be helping the community. That's why they got it. But there are no checks and balances on that. That's another thing I'm going to put in place, is some checks and balances. They're going to have to report how they're spending that 65%. No longer will they be able to just spend the money and then just report back with the amounts. No, we want to have receipts. Where's this money going? How many people did you feed? What impact you're making? If you want to keep that tax break, you're going to have to prove to us why you want it. I should take it to Donald Trump and make him do it.
Ha! Well, we have to do it. As a nonprofit, that side of the house, we have to do it. So the thing is, we have to do what's right. Jarrell, was you getting ready to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to chime in on the original part about the slave Bible, and just say, something that was supposed to give them hope, they took away. And a lot of the pieces that were in there contradicts a being that is supposed to be about love. And that's all that the being is about love. So saying things that contradict the love that the being gives to its children, obviously it's a form of oppression, but it makes me mad, and I constantly think about like my relationship with the Bible and Christianity as a whole, and how I feel like a lot of things that's in there contradicts a lot of things that God is as a being, altogether. So when you do see the scriptures that they kept in the Bible, like 1 Peter 2:18, servants, be subject to your masters with all respect, not only to the good and the gentle, but also to the heart. I think that was the one that you mentioned.
Yes.
When you say stuff like that, it's kind of like how is that? How does that is giving power to man, and that's something that the Bible says you're not supposed to do, and you're telling me that this man is hurting me, and I'm just supposed to just take it, and I'm supposed to continue to love on this person after the harm that they have caused me constantly. Like, I don't think that a loving God, a just God would want that for my life, which is why I think a lot of Black people in the community say that God was silent during slavery. And I understand that in the Bible, gives us free will, and then, God can try to get you out of situations, if you allow him to, which means, like, if he sent Harriet Tubman to free you, why didn't you go with Harriet Tubman type thing? But because of the fear of the slave master and the fear of God, I mean, they felt like they couldn't. Like, I'm stuck here. What am I supposed to do? And the same thing happens. The same thing is happening now, but in a different sense. A lot of people who are part of the church are not necessarily nice people. They kind of also oppress people, in a sense. And they keep people out. Everyone should be allowed in the church. So when you push people when you don't invite people into the church because of the way that they look or who they love, who they decide to love, or what they have been through and things like that, that's another division that's happening within the community. And another reason why we can't move forward is because eternally and as a community, we're fighting multiple battles with each other, and we can't even we were fighting these multiple battles, and we can't even move past our community to even fight the bigger battle, which is, obviously the government and white people and the things that they're doing to us, because we're constantly in a cycle of fighting and a constant cycle of staying resilient and a constant cycle of a struggle. And it's kind of like we're tired of continuously having to fight, which I guess goes back to why we don't move forward. In a sense, it's like we're tired. Like we're fighting. Who now you want me to protest? Like now you want me to protest and do this extra stuff, and I'm already trying to fight for myself. Like as someone who is a gay black man, like I'm fighting for other people for my own rights and my ability to love, and things, and defending myself. And then not saying that I fight for my community, but but like defending myself constantly every single day, and then going to work and have to prove myself to these people that like I'm qualified to do the work that I'm doing. And then now there's an extra layer of this president who is trying to take away tons of rights and doesn't understand what DEI is, trying to take away, doesn't understand what like pronouns are, and it's kind of like you're taking those things away, and it's like now I have to fight for this. Like I'm constantly fighting, but we can't give up. So it's a lot that is happening, that is going on, that what I think that speaking for like my generation and the generation after me, is a little bit tired of. But we continue to do it in different ways. We continue to fight in different ways, and we want to make the change. But I think there's just a lot of things that affects it where we can't all get on the same page sometimes.
Well, you said something. I'm sorry, were you done?
Yes.
We can't even agree on God. That's what he said. We can't even agree on God. How messed up can we be as a people that we can't even agree on God? I don't get it.
I will say this. Jarrell, your generation, what are you, Gen Z? I lose track.
No,
I know.
I'm a millennial.
Okay, well, I'm a baby boomer, even though I ain't boom no baby. But I'm a baby boomer. So I think your generation, and with each generation, we have individuals of people who are more radical. They're going to go against the grain and stuff like that. And as we moved forward, especially when we had the BIPOC communities come together, and then our LGBTQ plus siblings to come together and have that more radical approach. To me, that's why I feel like they took Black history and stuff out of the schools, because if their children read about all of the harms, and I'm talking about their children who may be part of the gay community or whatever, read about the harms that they caused during that time, they would be more applicable to join forces with us. Like, this is what you're doing, so not only do you have something to say about who I love and how I'm trying to live my life, you've been doing this for years, we're going to be out there with them. For instance, George Floyd. When Trisha and Survivor Speaks did that protest in Ann Arbor during that time, it was more of them out there than it was us. Way more. So if they start to read about our history, it's not, because I don't care about that. I'm going to teach mine about Black history myself. I'm not relying on the education system to teach them nothing. My little professor gets homework every day. I don't wait on a teacher to get him homework. Like, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. But at the same time, I just feel like that's why. It's not because they don't want us to learn. they don't want their own kids and grandkids to see the evil and the harm that they've been associated with, in fear of a more uniform, collaborative alliance with us. Now, I could be wrong, but I feel like I'm right to a point.
No,
Yeah, I think you are.
You're right. And I'm sorry, Dre, you're right. And right, they don't want us to know because see, once you took our God, okay? You took our God, you took certain things from us so that, you know, that we couldn't have the ability to learn this. It crippled our people. The less we learned and knew about who we were, the more we became who they stereotyped us to be. And so it's double fold. It's just like you said, don't want their children to learn because their children will be the ones to challenge their asses on this stuff and be like, what is going on here? Like they would be challenging their own family members about the atrocities of racism and why they're just now learning this. And they don't want us to understand who we are. Because if we ever learn who we are, there is we built this country. There's no comparison to anything that is in the DNA of the Black man and woman, and they don't want us to know that.
And I was like say, I misspoke, and I don't want to speak for my whole generation or Gen Z. So let me not say like everything that I'm saying is like what I think. So I don't want to speak for my whole generation. So I don't want them to get mad at me saying like, oh, I don't think that. So I'm not going to speak for my whole generation. But yes, I mean, I think the same thing with the Bible. I think that they manipulated the Bible to ensure the fact that that we think that we are like not good enough, and that obviously that they have power over us, but that we're not good enough to have a life or to persevere or to have hope, because there's a lot of stories in the Bible that show that hope, and then it show that resilience, and it show that love, and it show that strength, and then they wanted to ensure that they could rip that away to make sure that, you know, that they're this savior, that we need them, and that we only exist to benefit them, and you know everything that we have is because of them. And it's kind of like, well, no, the Bible clearly states that we are all one type of people. They chose to divide us. They chose everything from that point on when they took our ancestors from where they were from to bring us here. And they created race, and then they wanted to backtrack, and then they wanted to say things like, oh, y'all are always talking about race. Everything isn't about race. Everything is not about race, yet y'all continue to make everything about race. Yes. Y'all have these job applications that are about race. Y'all, if everything wasn't about race, y'all wouldn't have race on job applications. Y'all wouldn't have race on college admission forms. Y'all wouldn't have race on driver's license. Y'all wouldn't have race listed anywhere. But everything is about race because y'all want it to be about race, because y'all want to ensure that everyone who is not a white man is oppressed and is underneath you. So when they talk about DEI, the whole country is DEI, because if you're not a rich white cisgender man, you benefit from diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's very frustrating and very annoying. It's the same cycle over and over again, and they know that. They know what they're doing is wrong. So it's like keep having to argue it to people who know for a fact that it is wrong is very annoying. But there are some white people out there who literally believe it, who are ignorant and just think that it is fact. And those are the people that also are like kind of scary too. It's kind of like, well, not scary, but confuse me and concerning. It's kind of like, oh, you actually really believe everything that this president is saying. Like, you think that this is actual true. Like, you think that, you know, our ancestors wanted to be slaves and it was a choice, like it was a job. Like, oh yeah, they could have walked away anytime. Well, yeah, Right. They could have walked away. Yeah, sure. Like it is like they could just go about their business. They escaped. It was a prison. It wasn't fun and dandy. This isn't like working at Six Flags and you could just walk out when you want to. Like no, this is not that's not what was happening. But yeah, that was my last little tidbit.
Yeah, I remember Kanye West said slavery was a choice, and it's just like, oh, okay. At the same
Race isn't
time,
even real. Race isn't even real. That's a whole nother conversation. Jane Elliott talks about that. We need to have that conversation too coming up with this because race isn't even real. It was something that they put in place, and the messed up part about it is they don't care about no race because if you ain't got no money. Okay, because that's what's ruling this world is capitalism. But as long as they can keep us at the bottom, fighting and trying to be, like trying to say that somebody's superior over you. And I don't know who made that quote. It was one of the presidents said that if you can convince the lowest white man to think that he's more greater than the lowest black man, right? Then that's I forgot who.
That sounds like something Reagan would have said.
It was I might have been Johnson, Lyndon Johnson, or Andrew.
Oh, it sounds like something he would say, Lyndon Johnson.
Somebody like it was one of them that was just basically like saying like, look, if we can convince them that they higher than them, then we got something going here, and then we can just build an empire at the top. So really,
It was Lyndon B. Johnson. Yeah, so it was.
there
Yeah.
we go. Okay, yeah.
wow. Well, this has been a very good conversation
Yeah.
today for the first episode of the Black Pulse. I am excited, and I came up with my definition of what this is. The Black Pulse is a metaphorical title that conveys the idea of capturing and amplifying the heartbeat or rhythm of Black America. The term pulse suggests a lively, dynamic, and ongoing examination of the experiences, challenges, achievements, and aspirations of Black individuals and communities. It's about taking the cultural and social pulse, highlighting the vibrancy, strength, resilience, and struggles of Black America. So with that being said, I'm glad to be back. I'm glad to have everyone back with me and my engineer, Marquise. I missed him so much. And
Me too. Me too.
Aw, so sweet. Thank you, Jarrell, for coming on the show, and hopefully you will come back with us next week. We are going to talk about the integration paradox. Was integration progress or a setback for the Black community?
Setback.
Okay, so we will talk about that next week. So you have been tuned into the new season 6 of the Real Black Coffee, No Sugar, No Cream, where I don't try to spill any tea or make you feel dazed like you drank a shot of cheap liquor. I just want to state very truthful and factual statements that substantiate my opinion. And with that being said, we will see you next week. We're out.